Hello, everybody. Welcome into GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, April 29th. Hope everybody's having a great day so far. We have a lot to get into today. Of course, we're going to finish up our NFL draft coverage, at least for a little while, with a draft grade for each and every NFL team. We'll start off with the A's, get to the B's, and finally the bottom tier, which is the C's. We went over winners and losers yesterday, but we'll dive into a little bit of how I got to my process with each of these draft grades. Then we'll dive into a little bit of what's going on in the playoffs in each sport, where Giannis might end up after more and more issues seem to be piling up in Milwaukee. We'll talk about that situation for him and for Dame a little bit. That's all coming up later. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, April 29th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into everything going on in the NFL draft. We'll start off with the A's. Like I promised, there were a whole lot of teams that I thought had a really good draft. That is 13 out of 32 teams that I gave at least an A- to, and we'll start all the way at the top. There were 4 teams I gave A+ to, that being the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Cleveland Browns. I like all 4 of these drafts when you look at them for the players that they got. We'll start off with the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, the big shining moment with them is the fact they got 3 guys that could have or maybe even should have gone in the first round. In offensive guard Tyler Booker, edge rusher Donovan Ezeraku out of Boston College, and cornerback Siobhan Ravel Jr., who I am a huge fan of. But that wasn't it. They also got a lot of solid depth pieces, guys that could potentially step in and be immediate starters. Looking at in round 5, Jadon Blue, the running back out of Texas, and the linebacker Shamar James, who could step in at a role that they kind of really needed badly last season. Jadon Blue is a guy that I expect to take over that backfield in Dallas at some point. As much as I like Javonte Williams, he has proven that ever since his injury in his rookie year, he hasn't quite been the same back, and I've never really been that big of a Miles Sanders fan. But Jadon Blue is someone that I think with his speed and quickness, his ability for that home run speed, is someone that I really do think can change the Cowboys' backfield for the better. That was an A+ draft for the Cowboys. They were my favorite draft of the night. My second favorite draft of the night, though, that goes to the New York Giants. And sure, you can call me biased here. The only reason they're not number 1 is because they drafted Jackson Dart, and that might be the worst pick in the entire draft, not just the first round, but the entire draft. Jackson Dart is not a guy that I personally have a real grade on. Definitely not first round. Was looking more in that 3rd to 4th kind of round for Jackson Dart. Instead, they trade up for Jackson Dart. Not really the best use of resources, although the good thing is they didn't have to give up too much. But they support that awful pick with one of the best draft classes I have ever seen. They obviously draft the home run pick of Abdul Carter in round 1, pick 3. That one was a slam dunk, and glad they didn't mess that up. Then in round 3, they turn around and get Darius Alexander, who I personally had a first-round grade on. I love Darius Alexander. His physicality out of Toledo, that is someone that I think is going to come out and just be an absolute wrecking force for the Giants on a new, maybe the best defensive line in all of football. Now with Alexander, Carter, Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, they've got depth, they've got power, they've got the guys on the interior. What more could you want? I'll tell you what more, a running back that was 5th in Heisman voting that falls to the 4th round in Cam Skattebo. Cam Skattebo, who people are talking all about contact balance with Ashton Genty. He's got that if you like contact balance. Now, of course, different styles of runner, but I love what Cam Skattebo can bring. You've got that lightning thunder duo with him and Tyrone Tracy now. That's going to be a really fun backfield in New York, at least for the next couple of years. And they finish that off with another great pick, a guy in Marcus Mbao that a lot of people out of Purdue, an offensive lineman that can play basically any position. The Giants need that bad. They need offensive line, but a lot of people are saying that he could have gone in the early second round. Instead, he falls to the fifth, value pick after value pick after value pick after Jackson Dart. That's the only reason this isn't the number one class on my board, but I love what the Giants did. They get an A+ for me. Similarly, the Seahawks also get an A+. They brought in Gray Zabel in the first round. That one is just exactly what they needed. Then they take a risk, in my opinion, a risk on Nick Imanwari, the safety out of South Carolina. He is going to be either the best safety or the worst safety. There's really no in between with him. This is a pretty weak safety class overall, but then they got a tight end, Elijah Arroyo out of Miami. Jalen Milroe is a guy that I love coming out of Alabama. He is a guy that has all of the upside in the world if he develops correctly, especially with a not-so-committal contract that we're giving to a guy like Sam Darnold in Seattle. I love what the Seahawks bring over here with Jalen Milroe. Torrey Horton as a wide receiver, I love him. He's one of those underrated wide receivers for me. And two really good seventh-round picks, really good value picks in running back Damian Martinez and wide receiver Ricky White III. Both of these guys, I think, are going to come in and be able to be producers on day one if they get their opportunity, get their shine. Ricky White more on that special team side, but he is elusive if he gets the ball in his hands. Look for him to maybe do some punt return and kick return for the Seattle Seahawks this year. I love this draft class for the Seahawks a lot. And the final A+ that I gave out goes to the Cleveland Browns. I might have misclassified them yesterday. I was looking at the picks a little bit more, and I actually love what the Browns did. I don't love the fact that they traded away from a all-world, all-generational talent, a special kind of talent we've never seen before in the NFL in Travis Hunter, but they did a good job with it. They got an extra first-round pick. They pick up Mason Graham, who is the second-best defender in this class, maybe even the first. He's probably got a little bit of a higher floor than Abdul Carter does, but a lower ceiling. Carson Schwezinger out of UCLA, the linebacker, is excellent in coverage. I love what he brings in the second round, as well as Quinshon Judkins, one of the two-headed monsters from Ohio State at running back. They bring in Dylan Sampson in the fourth round. You've, again, got a Lightning Thunder duo there. You build around that, move off of Jerome Ford, who really wasn't cutting it as RB1 for them last season, bringing a really interesting receiving threat at tight end in Harold Fannin Jr., put him opposite of Njoku, and you look at what those two can do in a 12 personnel set. That is going to be really, really fun to watch in the third round. And then, of course, the quarterbacks. Obviously, the big controversy is the fact that they drafted two in Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. But neither of them are really a surefire thing, right? You get one in the third and one in the fifth. If you get either of those guys to hit as your future franchise quarterback, you have run this draft out of the water. I love what the Browns did. All four of those teams get A+ from me. There's two teams that just get normal A's, the Eagles and the Dolphins. The Eagles, they just hit everything, right? Jahad Campbell, Andrew Makuba, two of my highest rated players at their positions. Ty Robinson is exactly the hole they needed to fill. Kyle McCord is a solid backup, but they didn't do anything that really blew me out of the water. They were smart. They waited their turn. They let the draft come to them, and they filled a lot of holes that they needed to. Same thing can be said for the Miami Dolphins. I also gave them an A. In round one, they took Kenneth Grant at pick 13. That was a pick that a lot of people were expecting them to go corner, which is my big gripe in this draft. They waited until the fifth round to address the corner position. Outside of that, I really like what they've done. At defensive tackle, rebuilding that defensive line after moving off of a bunch of guys. Kenneth Grant out of Michigan, I love. Jordan Phillips in the third round. You address the offensive line in the second with Jonas Savaiana. That is out of Arizona. I absolutely love that pick for them as a big guard down there who could move a little bit. They addressed the secondary in the fifth round. I would have liked to see them address it sooner with cornerback Jason Marshall Jr. and safety Dante Trader Jr. These are guys that I don't really believe too much in, but at least they got their pick for it, and they should be able to make a little bit of impact for this team right away. Ollie Gordon in the sixth is a value pick if I've ever seen one. They move off of one of their running backs after, Devon Achane takes over that backfield. They really struggled in short yardage situations last season. Getting a guy like Ollie Gordon that can be that power rusher to the speed that is Achane, Ollie Gordon is a perfect pick for them in the 6th round. I love what they did. And then they pick up a backup for Tua, something that has probably been their biggest weakness. They get a backup for him in the 7th round in Quinn Ewers as well. The Steelers, my final solid A that I gave out. They got Derek Harmon in the 1st round, addressing that defensive tackle position that they need after losing Larry Ogunjobi. Caleb Johnson in the 3rd round. They didn't have a 2nd round pick, but he's a running back that I think can completely change things after moving off of Najee Harris this offseason. They get a couple other guys from the national championship team. Jack Sawyer, the linebacker, who was the captain of the defense's leadership over there, should be pretty huge. Getting him in the 4th round, I think, is really good value. And then Will Howard. Will Howard is going to be potentially QB1, depending on what's going on with Aaron Rodgers, but he steps into an opportunity where he could show what he can do. And if Will Howard gets behind a solid offensive line, he has the weapons with DK and Pickens. This is a guy that I think could be pretty successful in Pittsburgh. Getting him in the 6th round, I don't hate that at all. I really don't. Moving on to the A-minuses, there's quite a few teams here that I gave A-minuses to. We'll start off with the Atlanta Falcons. I kind of clowned them a little bit for the trade they made in the 1st round, but you look at the rest of their selections. They didn't have too many picks, but they hit on just about all of them. I really liked all of them. Jalen Walker's a guy that I like. He can be really effective as an edge rusher or a linebacker. James Pierce Jr. was really effective at Tennessee. He got much better in the run game. You trade up, you give a lot to get him, but you have a new set of edges for the Falcons, which is exactly what they've been missing. And then they bring in Xavier Watts, who's one of my favorite safeties in this entire draft in round 3. He's maybe the complete package at safety that we don't see in a lot of other guys. I love Xavier Watts. I love this pick for the Falcons. They're here at A-. The only reason I didn't bump them up higher is because I thought they gave up just a little bit too much in that James Pierce Jr. trade. The Panthers similarly get an A-. I liked their first 3 picks a lot, bringing in Tet McMillan, Nick Scourton, 2 first-round guys, Princely Umalian, an edge rusher over there to address that defensive need, and then they went offense for a little bit. They took a flyer on Jimmy Horn Jr., a wide receiver that I think could be really explosive in the league this year, and Trevor Etienne. He gets his chance. Obviously, his brother, Travis Etienne, on the Jaguars. It's still a crowded backfield over there for the Panthers, but getting a guy like Etienne in the 4th round, again, I like the value there for them. The Jags make this list because of the trade up for Travis Hunter. I don't think they did anything else too special, but I love them being aggressive and getting Travis Hunter. I also like the 7th round pick of LaQuint Allen out of Syracuse, the running back. I love what they're able to do there. They address the offensive line with Wyatt Millum out of West Virginia in round 3, address the defense a little bit with Caleb Ransaw out of Tulane in the 3rd round, and Jack Kaiser, a linebacker, in the 4th round. I love what the Jaguars did this draft, especially around Travis Hunter. He's one of my favorite players, one of my favorite prospects ever that I've seen when we're looking at the draft. And the final couple of teams that got A- is the Chiefs. Justin Simmons. Need I say more? He's arguably the best offensive tackle in this class. He falls to 32. They get picks to draft him. They also grab Omar Norman Lott out of Tennessee, the defensive tackle, to pair him up with Chris Jones on the inside. Take a flyer on Jalen Royals. I really like what the Chiefs did in this draft. The Patriots similarly hit on just about everything. Will Campbell's going to be a home run pick. Travion Henderson is going to be an amazing pass blocker as well as pass catcher and running back. Kyle Williams is a guy that a lot of people are high on out of Washington, the wide receiver. I'm not super high on him, but he is someone that if he hits the way that some people are saying, Kyle Williams could be the next big wide receiver for the Patriots. Jared Wilson at center, continuing to rebuild that offensive line with Will Campbell. And then they got a couple of edge rushers in the late rounds, a couple of defenders in the late round. A guy that I like is Braden Swinson out of LSU. This is a guy that I think could be really impactful for the Patriots this season. And finally, the Titans. They get an A- simply because they get Cam Ward. There's a couple of other picks that I really like as well. They get Gunnar Helm, the tight end out of Texas, in round 4. I think he's a really solid tight end. They get wide receiver Eric Iominer out of Stanford. He's a guy that was fringe 1st round for a lot of people when we're looking at these mock draft websites. A wide receiver 6-ish kind of ranking. Not that high for me, but a lot of people liked him. in round 4 is a good spot. They get Khalil Mullings, who was the entire offense from Michigan in round 6, and they grab a safety in round 3 and Kevin Winston Jr. to address that defense. I love what the Titans did. I really did. They get an A minus for me. That's 13 teams that knock this draft out of the water. 13 teams that get an A, 4 that get an A plus. I'm a huge fan of a lot of these drafts this year. There are a whole lot more that were kind of mid in the middle with those B to B minus grades. We'll talk about those coming up next, but let me know what your thoughts are. What drafts would you give an A plus to? Which drafts would you give just a normal A to? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we discuss the B rankings. There are about 20 teams in B for me. We'll run through and make sure we don't spend too much time on each and every one, but we'll take a look at each team's draft class, what the strengths and weaknesses were coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.